Hi.
Hello. You are a woman of many, many talents. Like, I was super impressed when I saw all the credits, and I was like, man, this is somebody who, you know, without even having spoken to you or gone onto your social media or your website, I'm like, you can tell that there's a vision that she wants to see all the way through, and there's not a person that's going to stop her. So I was like, I need to get a hold of her and see what this is about,
Man,
picking
you
teeth.
make it sound so much cooler. I'm like, yeah.
It really is. And so, I mean, the first question right off the bat I want to ask is, what has your journey of discovery looked like so far?
Well, a lot of no's. That's
Mm,
for sure. So I started off in New York, or really I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I was doing theater there. And then I moved to New York and I was in the Lion King for a while. I went on tour with the show. And I just recently moved to Los Angeles, California to pursue a film career. And it's just been a lot slower. I think everybody thinks they're going to come to LA and they're like, I've arrived. And everyone's going to say, come, come, come. And they're grabbing you on, on both sides. No, it was very much not like that. And it was extremely disappointing because I had a lot of high hopes. And so I had a decision to make. Uh, and it was really thrown in my face, pardon me, in 2020, because before, you're waiting for people to give you permission. You're waiting for somebody to put you on. You're waiting for someone to validate you, whether it be an acting teacher or a casting director or an actual director or a producer or just somebody. You're waiting for somebody to say, yes, you got it. And 2020, of course, stopped everybody. At least in March,
yeah.
the majority of us, especially in big cities, we were stopped in our tracks. In Los Angeles, everything shut down. And so there was a bit of anxiety that kind of started to creep up on me. Like, oh no,
Yeah.
this is supposed to be my year. This is supposed to be my moment. And now what do you do? And so I remember in 2017, I tell this story. I made this film, this short film. The Atlantic and HBO, they came together to do like these series, and the series was called Question Your Answers. And there was what's this actor's name? I think it's Michael White. He was on The Wire,
Mm,
and he basically asked himself, am I typecast? But he's asking himself the question and he's looking at himself. And there's different versions and types of himself. And it was just brilliant to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do that. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has so many questions in my mind about life, about things. And I
yeah.
talk to myself a lot. I'm single, I talk to myself a lot. And so I'm like, I'm gonna put it on camera. And so the first film that I did was my first discovering myself, stepping out, challenging myself to do something different. But I had some help. I had my friend Selena, I had a friend Phylicia. My sister was the one who actually sent it to me and, kind of pushed me, propelled me to do it. And so that was the first time I did it. Now in March of 2020, it was my first time showing it. That goes to show you how
Wow.
hard I am with myself. I'm like, I did it in 2017. And there was a bit of me that was like, I'm proud, but the comparison demon will really get you. You know what I
Bro,
mean?
yes.
And so I just tucked it away. I put it aside and I'm like, okay, that's just for, me to know that I can do it.
Hmm.
I got so restless. And I think sometimes that's what God will do. He will put us in a position where we get so hungry, we just do not care. And I felt alone, isolated. I'm away from my family. They're in St. Louis, some are in Texas, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm like, I'm going to build a community and I'm going to show them what I did. And it'll be our safe space. And I did it. And it was received very well. And I got a lot of encouragement. And then I got hungry again. I'm like, you know what? I can do this. I'm already the only person. I got the whole cast. The whole cast is already here. Let's see where this can go. And so I called my friend Selena, the one who actually DP'd the last project, and I said, hey, is there any way I can do this? She's like, girl, yes. Do such and such, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going, as soon as I got off the phone with her, I'm like on my computer trying to figure out how can I do this? And it worked. And I did it. And so I said, I'm going to create this series. And I did not expect for it to go as far as it did. And I am very grateful I did not go into it with that line of thinking. It
Yeah.
was literally therapy for me because, it's definitely a narrative, you know what I mean? It was what I was going through, but I just put text to it, whatever. But it was for me to find myself and play. I think as artists, we don't play enough. It's just so dog eat dog. What are your numbers? How many people are following you? How much are you putting out?
Mm.
It feels for me, and everyone may not feel this way, but for me at times it feels very just serious. And as
Yeah.
artists, there has to be play in us. There has to be permission to fall and fail and, just imagine. And I went into it with that intention. And I am very grateful with where it went.
Man, that's the conversation that I just had this morning is that,
Mhm.
we have to push the boundaries that we are given.
Yeah.
Because when you do get into things like the numbers and the
Yeah.
business side and all the admin stuff that you're worried about, you sometimes lose out on that creativity and
Mhm.
you're almost stifled. And so
Yeah.
it's really important to push the boundaries and back up from
Yeah.
that from time to time so that your art really is a reflection of who you are. And I
Right.
think that, as you said, you did that. You were just
Mhm.
creating for yourself,
Yeah.
in talking through to yourself, trying to use it as a form of therapy. You
Mhm.
created a piece of work that I think many can relate to, which is why it's being received well. So I
Yeah.
will say, congratulations on making it into Slam Dance.
Thank you. I
You're
went
welcome.
crazy. I thought it was a friend who was prank calling me. I was like,
Mm,
what's going on, man? Because I submitted, but I didn't
yeah,
expect. I didn't expect it.
yeah.
But yeah, thank you for that.
You're absolutely welcome. That's how I heard of quarantine corals. And what happened was, of course, we're going through trying to just see who's about. And I saw your face on there, and I said, "Click, let's go. We're about it."
Hey, come on.
Trying to see what creatives that look like me, what they're creating as well. And so the very first thing when you open up the videos, it gives you all the credits, and I'm like, okay, director Sophia Stephens, screenwriter Sophia Stephens, cast Sophia Stephens, editor Sophia Stephens. I said, wait a minute, and I was like, I have to see what this is about at this point, right? And I was like, this is a multi hyphenate who, I just want to see what's going on through her head because this will definitely, with her being credited as the director, screenwriter, actress, all of that, this is going to be her vision. There was nobody to tell her what to do, how to do it, what the boundaries were. We're about to see something that's really authentic and true to who she is. And of course, in the first minute alone, I was like, she's got it. She's so got it.
Grace, I truly appreciate that. I do
No,
not take your
absolutely.
words lightly. Thank you.
For sure. I mean, to be in that boat, we know what it's like. It's so hard as somebody. I'm new to the industry, I'll say that for sure.
Mhm.
Such a baby to something, and looking at the big picture, the world of it, and it's really easy to get lost. And so to see something like this, I was just, I don't know, you can see the heart. You can see the heart in the project. I don't know how else to put it. And I was really impressed, because there's the heart of it, and then you can see how you engage with your audience. And I'll say after, the first minute, um, they tell you, whenever you're doing your research into
Mhm.
projects and who you're going to pitch to and whatnot and who not, after the first minute, that's when you've got your audience or not. And I mean, that's just the time we live in. People's attention spans are much shorter than they've
It's
ever been.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
But as soon as the title came up, it said connecting in quarantine. I was like, she's got me. We didn't
Oh,
need the 1 minute test,
man.
right?
Thank you so much.
You're absolutely welcome. I did want to ask, because you've done this, was it entirely by yourself? Did you have a little bit of help? I want to make sure I'm giving credit to where it's due.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you this, okay?
Hmm.
I wrote it, but I have more of a writing consultant. Her name is Phylicia from Mpasi. You may want to check her out. She's incredible. And
Mm,
so because um, I'm trying to watch my words. I didn't consider myself to be a writer. I am standing in
mm,
that now because we are consistently developing. And so I
yeah.
can say that now. And even if I were like gung ho and knew for a fact that I was a writer, Toni Morrison has an editor. You know what I mean? You need somebody
Hmm.
to look it over. You need somebody to say, hey, what is it? So that was her job. She looked it
Okay.
over and just combed through it for me. So I could say I wrote it. I directed it. Nobody was here. Of course, I played all the characters. I DP'd it with my camera. I edited it fully by myself. And on some of the episodes, as a matter of fact, on this one, the second half of it, my friend Selena, who did my first project, she color corrected some of it. And
Okay.
so the second half of it, she color, and they're all credited on that episode for doing that. But yeah, and then the music was done. Oh, I got a track from online, and then I sang, you know, a little bit of it. So
We
yeah.
saw, we saw. We're definitely gonna get to that. Because when I say surprise after surprise, I was like, what more can she do? Like I thought we
Oh
were
man.
there. um, let me start with that, the beginning. Then the framing, the blocking, you're saying you were your own DP. How
Mhm.
did that, work out for you? Because I was super impressed by just the reacting to yourself. That
Yeah,
takes quite a bit of work and maybe even practice. Could you explain a bit of that process?
absolutely. So basically, I had to record it out. Okay.
Mm.
And I I feel like in every scene there's a rhythm. In every conversation, there's a rhythm. And so part of me felt like, okay, how can I do this if I do take this out? If I do actually, because I had to have another part recorded in order for me to respond to it. And so I recorded it out, and then, I found ways to mute it and
Mm.
unmute it, and then literally just eyeline. It was literally as if I behaved as if I was playing to someone else. And
Mm.
I just made sure my framing was right. I will not lie to you. When I was doing it, I was in a zone. And it was because it was therapy. And I felt like God was meeting me here because I was going through my own stuff.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize how much work it actually was until after after I did it. Like even the bathtub scene, trying to maintain those bubbles, girl. When I tell you, I did that. I did it twice. I did it twice. I did it one time, and I didn't really like the way the coloring was and all that. I'm like, "No, I'm gonna do this again." And so I did it again, and it was just really difficult to jump out of the tub, start my camera, get back in the tub, make sure the microphone was in the right place, the bubbles weren't affecting the sound, the bubbles were the right height. I said,
Wow.
"Oh, you're doing the absolute most today, aren't you?" But yeah, that's just it. And I think I actually may end up building a course because I feel like it's it's such a cool thing to do as a performer because you really understand the
Yeah.
other side. Well,
Yes.
we're generally in front of the camera, and so to see what editing entails, to see what getting the right framing entails, and audio, like I have a new appreciation for lighting. Like
Yep.
they are wizards. How in the world do you manipulate this thing? Like it was crazy. So
Yeah.
it definitely did not take. It didn't take too long. I think overall it was the entire process was about 2.5 months. 2.5 months, 2.5 to 3 months maybe. But that particular episode was a doozy. Yeah.
Got you. Yeah. No,
Mhm.
and I mean, it's incredible. Kudos to you for putting in the work. Sometimes we don't give ourselves credit, and you need to take the credit because that is a lot of work. I've had
It
to,
took
you
a
had to,
yeah.
did you have to mask when editing? Do a bit of
Math?
masking? Yeah.
What do you mean? Oh, you mean like in terms of taking out things and
Mm-hmm.
okay, so that's when Selena had to help me because I use a
Okay.
green screen. And so I was only able to wear certain colors and certain things
Yeah.
and so she helped me with some of the masking for that episode that was not necessary.
But
So
hey, still it was done. I was gonna say I've tried it. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. I was like, look, this is not my job. No, 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 no.
well, I think I may build a course. Like I said, I think I may do that and show
You need
people
to.
like step by step how to do it. Because I
Hmm.
think everybody just give it a shot if you want to.
Yeah, and the more creative control for you at a particular, depending on where you are in your career and what you're working on, definitely the more creative control you can have, the
Yeah,
better you are able to articulate your vision. I've
right.
done the editing thing and I thoroughly enjoy it, but
Yeah.
with you being two characters in the same space, that's different. We're not playing level one anymore. You need to go ahead. You need to make that course, please.
Great. So you were making me feel really confident about this.
As you should.
Okay,
As
it's
you
probably gonna
should.
go down. It's gonna go down. It's gonna go down. Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of the bathtub scene,
Yeah.
there are some really, really good moments in there that I want to touch up on. And I want to begin with the grunting. Where did that come from? Because when I watched it, the couple of times that I did, I laughed every single time. I'm like, why? Whose idea was this?
See, I got my ideal audience right here. I love it.
Mm.
You get so you really understand it from the first episode. And so
Mm.
that was the third episode. And I probably should have made that very clear for those who didn't know. But that was the third episode. The first episode is when Fifi meets Fia. Fia was the one who was sitting on the stool next to the bathtub.
Mhm.
And kind of like the wisdom in ourselves, that guiding light. And the grunt came just because I'm crazy and I love watching Iyanla fix my life. And she does
Mm.
very dramatic things to get people to the other side.
Yep.
And sometimes I feel like we have stress that sits in our body. And for me, sometimes it can sit right in the stomach, chest area, and I just want to thrust it out. And so I say, you know
Mm.
what? I wish I just just breathe, just get it out, just breathe it out. And so we just went from there. But it's just a release. It's a good
No,
old
you know what? When I was watching it, I was like, this either had to have come from therapy itself or some type of acting class or something, because this is not just anything that just happens. I absolutely enjoyed that. Absolutely enjoyed it.
I'm happy you did. Yeah, but I feel like a lot of acting class for sure. I can see myself doing that in vocal class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, for
That was
sure.
it was a
And
gem.
yoga. Yes.
Okay, I can see that. I can definitely see
Yeah.
that. Oh yeah. And while we're still at the bathtub, this is the part where I was like, this Sophia person is not somebody to be played with.
Come on.
When you started singing, and so it starts with Carole King's "You've Got a Friend," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, here we go with the compliments again. You have an amazing voice.
Thank you.
And from going from all the talents that you had before, I was not prepared for that. And of course, you have the footage, the archives of what I assume are videos from this last summer, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. All
Okay.
of them were. Every single one.
Yep.
Every single one.
I want to touch on a couple of things. So before we get to maybe the heavier stuff,
Mhm.
this song and how it blends into "We Have a Friend in Jesus."
Yeah.
There's something to dissect in that. I first want to talk about "You've Got a Friend." What is your favorite rendition? Because I listened to the Donny Hathaway, and Roberta Flack, Aretha Franklin, CC and BB Winans, every single one. Yes,
You think BB
yes,
Winans have a rendition?
with Aretha Franklin.
Wait a minute.
I had to, yep.
I listened to Donnie's.
Okay.
I listened to Donnie's, and now I'm gonna be like, when I get off this call with you, trying to hear Aretha and BB&C. I didn't know that. Definitely Donnie, and then Carole King, of course.
Okay. They're all really beautiful. I mean, it's really hard to put a place on it, but I think I'm right there with you with
Yeah.
as amazing as Aretha and BB and CC were. There's something about there's a richness in Donny Hathaway's, and I'm like, okay,
I mean, one of a
yeah,
kind, one of a kind. And
very much so.
that's the one I usually listen to.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting because I honestly was concerned that it was gonna be too long, but
Mm.
I knew that I wanted to sing that song. And I knew if I was gonna be honest about the narrative and, the character, which was essentially a big part of me, Jesus is fully involved in this. And
Yep.
so I wanted to find a way to bring it. And it flew, it came to me, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And so I'm happy that it was received well because I did get nervous. I was like, ooh, I don't know. I'll tell
Yeah.
you something. Before, I didn't have those clips in there. I didn't have those clips. I just had me singing it. And I kept thinking, there is something missing. Like there needs to be, it's too much on me. I'm not showing the full story. Like, where am I going in this? And
Mm.
so my friend Monique Midgette, I want to give her a shout out because she really helped me with this. I'm talking it over with her. And she's like, well, what are you thinking about? I'm like, oh my God, that's it. That's it. That's it. And so
Mm.
I find all these clips, and there were so many powerful moments. I mean, my goodness, there are going to be so many films about that year. I feel like
Yeah.
1968 is one of those years, and then 2020 is another year where it's just like the world went crazy. But
Yeah.
there were so many moments that I had to choose from that really, kind of gave it shape. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm happy it was well received.
And that actually really segues into my next question. I think the one that really shook me
Mm.
was the lady who was saying, "How can you win?" Um, that was heavy. That was so heavy.
Grace,
And
I
I
can't
want to
tell you how
know
many times I watched that.
mm, exactly. I had to go back, listen to it over and over again because the we're in a moment where we're having conversations about Black women and the word strong and
Mm,
what exactly that
mm,
word and how its connotation and its effect on us as a people,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
What that has done to us, and whether or
mhm,
not that's something that we need to be at all times. And I think that it's a
mhm,
conversation worth having. But I
mhm,
did want to ask because when I watch it, that's what I feel: the pain of being strong, the pain of asking over and over again, how long do I have to do this for? So
mhm,
her question, how can you win? I want to know what made you choose that. And I want to know if that specifically ties into the verse that you use, Matthew 14:27. But
mm.
first, let's get to the first question. So why did you choose that? Because you said, you went through a bunch of clips trying to figure out which one to use. Why that one?
Uh, I think that I don't think what I was feeling the most at that time, and what I was saying, or what I wanted to show, is the intensity of despair.
Mhm.
It was just a lot of despair happening. And there were we were all facing, like, collectively we were facing death, but then you had our community that was facing pressure, death, and also like brutality. And it's like, where are the answers?
Mhm.
Where are the answers to this? Where for COVID, where are the answers? How
Yeah.
long is this going to be? For police brutality, where are the answers? For the homelessness, where are the answers? For people who are hungry right now, where are the answers? And you're seeing recklessness, you're seeing irresponsibility, you're seeing people who now who once would ignore it, they can no longer ignore it. They've got to look it square in the face. But it's just, I felt so much despair, and not necessarily just within myself, but I think as humans we should be feeling each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I relate to people who are empathic, and so you cry, I cry. When you're mourning, I'm mourning. When you're happy, I'm happy. And at that moment, I felt intense despair. And she just, I mean, if you even see her monologue, have you seen her monologue? Her
I
monologue,
wanna say I
her speech.
watched it once a while ago, and I don't remember too much of it, but that was, as you were saying, that was a huge moment of despair. I honestly had to disconnect for huge chunks of the summer, completely disconnect.
And you know
So
what? I
go ahead,
respect
yeah.
that. Yeah, I respect that. But she basically just, she laid it out so beautifully. And then at the very end, like when she just said, well, you got this, you got that, you got this. But here's what we're fighting up against. And then we tried to do this, but then you did this. And then we tried to do that, but then you did this. So tell me, how can we win?
Mhm.
It was just so, it was almost as if she wrote it out.
Yeah,
It was like spirit led. It was so beautiful the way she just articulated her pain and her anguish. And I suppose that's what I wanted this to say. Like, you just get to a point where you have no choice but to surrender, because you don't know how else how do I fight this?
yep.
So yeah.
That is heavy. As
Yeah.
I continue to think about it, the answer to the question, I feel like you just answered it, is kind of just surrendering, and not in the sense that we back
Give
down,
up.
throw our hands up.
No.
Yeah, exactly. We don't give up,
No.
but there is, it's almost like just trying to find another tactic. And in the moment, we do not allow the despair to bring us down and defeat us, because that's
Right.
not at all what it is. But it ties all into this conversation of what does it mean to be strong? Do we always need to be strong? It is. I mean, it is. a time to be a Black woman, to say the least. I think the
And what is
conversations we're
being
having
strong?
now,
Yeah, and what
there we
is
go.
being strong? Like, I don't think it's almost like that toxic masculinity, you know? It's like, oh,
Hmm.
this is the only way we see strength. When sometimes strength is crying, when sometimes
Hmm.
strength is releasing, when
Yeah.
sometimes it just looks so differently. And I think the biggest grievance is that we have been encouraged or taught that strength only looks one way.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, you are strong and you're strong enough to let it go.
Mm.
And you're strong enough to just walk away or you know what I mean? Strong
Yeah.
enough to be alone.
Yep.
These are things that we don't always consider. So I think the real grievance is, okay, well, strength means I can take it and I'm gonna fight it and I'm not gonna stop until I get it. And
Mm.
that's the biggest misconception.
Yeah.
So, yes, Black women, we are strong. I think we need to look at other ways in which strength is exemplified.
Yeah.
And that's it.
100%. I co-sign. I co-sign. We
Yeah.
cannot allow strength to be our detriment.
Right.
It has to be.
Yeah. And it gives us, yeah, we have to, because then we almost are no longer human again. It's like we're
Mm.
constantly just trying to prove that we're human. I hurt, I pain, I bleed. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Let the doctors know, let the educators know, let people know, let the police know we're human. We're
Mm.
strong, but we're human. So anyway,
I got that. No, I got
yeah,
that. It's a
yeah,
lot. In another sense, I've constantly been thinking about how people prepare you. We talk about how beautiful it is to be on a high,
yeah.
when you're at your greatest moment, but nobody tells you that just as high as you climb, the low moments can be just as deep. And that is what, like, we need to get, um, we need to be aware of what that's like so that we can have a bit more control of our narrative, and not just, on the social justice level, but as individuals who make up a society, who make up a culture that kind of transforms the way that history looks like. And so, yeah, I resonate with that. We do have to be very
Yeah,
careful with what we say and do, because words do matter,
yeah.
and perception does matter, whether or not
Mhm,
that's something we want to um, agree on or admit to.
mhm.
Perception really does matter. And it's not that it's necessarily our job to fix another's perception of who we are,
Yeah.
but rather understand what it is that's being said about us and what we say about ourselves, which we can go into about 1,000 different topics concerning
Mhm.
that. But I do want to bring it back. In relation to Matthew 14:27, the verse, take courage. It is I, don't be afraid. How does that tie it all in? Because it definitely seems like that might be the overall theme
It
to at
is.
least this particular episode. I don't know if it is for the series, but
It is the overall theme for the series.
okay.
So it's an area that I want to play with a little bit more,
Hmm.
but it's just this um I say I'm cool with being alone,
Hmm.
and then you get into that space where you really do feel alone and things get scary.
Yeah.
And the scariest part about it, um I had a pastor in New York, um, CCC church, A.R. Bernard, and he actually got COVID.
Hmm.
Pardon me. And he talks about it. He talks about it with the congregation. I looked at it online about how he went to a very dark place. And he said, I saw things. Like I saw things and like heaven and hell. And just he just saw a lot of things, just deepness. And of course there have been stories now, people having COVID dreams and you just go into these places. And I can imagine how terrifying that is. You're not by your family, you are not by friends, you don't know anyone around you, and those who are around you are sick or dying. The nurses who are near, you can't touch them, you don't feel,
Yeah.
it's just, it's it's severe isolation. we're not talking about, of course, the shoe, of course, solitary confinement, but it's this isolation that you feel you're all by yourself. And I felt like I was kind of in that position, not to that extreme, but it was a place where God could meet all of us. It almost felt like we were all being sent to our rooms and like, let me meet you there. Let me meet you there. And I'm here to tell you, do not be afraid because I am here and I'm going to guide you through this and I'm going to show you things. And so that's what the main character, that's the journey that this character goes on, trying to figure out what's going on, feeling despair, feeling empty, feeling lonely. And at the end of the day, realizing, okay, maybe this is all ordained, so to speak, so that I can have an encounter and hear these precious words, take courage, I am here.
I think context for this verse matters a lot as well. Matthew 14, at least the latter of the chapter talks, or it's the story of how Jesus himself had went to isolation. So right before all of this has happened, this is the story of how he made the 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish for the multitude, for them to eat. That his isolation, he hadn't been able to successfully go into isolation because they kind of interrupted that by coming to him. And then once that is said and done, he goes back into isolation. And in the middle of the night, the disciples see Jesus walking on water, and Jesus calls for them. Peter is like, I'm not about to say this absolutely right, but
No, I like where you're going. Yeah. And then
he
Peter said,
says,
come.
yeah, if it is you, tell me to come to you. And so Jesus invites him, and he starts walking on water. And in the midst of it, he observes the wind, and he is disrupted. His faith is disrupted, so he begins to sink. And then I think what's so amazing about this is that although his faith is disrupted and although he starts to sink, Jesus is still there to carry him and see him through. At the end, it's like, why have little faith? But he still accepted him. And I think that that is a huge testament to what we've seen here, right? I have recently learned, I would say in the last year, with all the time we've had to listen to as many sermons as possible, right?
Right.
That anxiety and fear and doubt can be an issue to your faith. And that's because faith is kind of this single-mindedness. And when you have doubt and anxiety and fear, you open up another mind to come and infiltrate what it is that you have, right? The fact that even though that can happen and there still be a positive end result, as we see in connecting in quarantine, which is, it seems, as though there is some sort of reconciliation because we do end with a joke, and I think that was absolutely great.
Right.
But it takes us back to being lightheartedness. It's this consistent cycle of knowing that although you've messed up, you can always come back. Know who's right beside you. Know that you need to take courage and remain in your faith because of the one who is there to guide you all the time, in front of you, behind you, to your side, whatever. And I think that's so beautifully articulated. One of the things that I want to do as a creative and an artist is figure out how to tie my projects to faith. And it doesn't necessarily have to be strictly overt, right? But that there's a kind of inspiration that's undeniable that we do see in day-to-day life. And I think that you've done that wonderfully. It's a beautiful depiction of what it looks like to have faith and to have doubt because that's realistic. So I wanted to leave the room, get off my soapbox, leave the room if you wanted to add on to that in any kind of way.
Yeah, one of my favorite verses, or should I say chapters, because I now I'm gonna get in trouble because I can't quote it, when I say it's my favorite, but it's a story about a man who, I think it's Mark 9, and he says to Jesus, I believe, Lord, help my unbelief. It makes me, it gets me every single time. It's like, I believe. Now help the part of me that is having problems believing.
Yep.
And I think that's a wonderful thing. God will meet us wherever we are, wherever we are. And if we trust him, that faith will grow. And so I think that's what this is all about. It's him meeting us, God meeting us wherever we are, in whatever we're in. And then us fully saying, okay, I surrender. I'm strong enough to surrender.
There we go.
I'm strong enough to say, I don't got this. And I need you to take over. And that's that. And as far as your faith, I definitely don't want to be one of those people who is banging people upside the head with it. With my faith. I think that whatever is in you comes out, it just leaks out into your work because it's still your voice.
Mhm.
And you know what I mean? And so, I mean, I'm a new writer, and so maybe I'll learn otherwise. But for the most part, I wasn't even trying to be heavy-handed with it. And for the first time, I'm like, I'm not going to hide it either. I'm not going to say, well, I want to make sure everybody. No, no, this is what it is. This is what's going
Yeah.
on. And so, I'm happy it was well received in that sense.
It was amazing. I think it's because it has that, and not to jump into philosophy and theology and all of that, but I think it's because it has that element of how does it actually relate. And I'll speak for myself. Growing up,
Mhm.
there sometimes was that line of demarcation that separated reality from faith, and it
Yeah,
takes a lot to really break down what does it look like, where do
yeah,
they merge? Because I tell people all the time, I don't operate outside of my faith. I mean, everything that I am, imperfections and all, still comes into play with that. And so I think because you tied it so well and it's seamless, it had the opportunity to be well received versus, being the kind who's heavy handed. And I mean, not to speak strictly against heavy handed people, but
right.
when you're coming all facts and no um, empathy, then
Mhm.
that is how the world is going to receive you. And so
Absolutely.
yeah, I absolutely love what you've done with this. It's very telling, like I said, of where you're going to go. If you haven't written a lot, but this is what you've done so far, I can't wait to see what happens. To be honest,
Oh
yeah,
man, thank you. You keep me in your prayers, keep giving me good
we'll do.
vibes, good energy. I really appreciate this.
You're absolutely welcome. I try my best. We have to encourage, not even we have to. I think that it's worth speaking encouragement to others because there's, as I've been hearing recently, and I'm glad people are saying it, there is enough room for all of us to succeed.
There's so
I mean,
there's so
you,
much.
yes, you
There's
could have
so
told
much.
me everything that we just discussed right now before I have ever seen it. And I can tell you what, I can never recreate what you've done because it's your truth, right? And so in the midst of being in this industry and being um and competition being thrown at you, I'd rather say you did it. You did it. You did that. Okay. You did.
Yes. Thank you,
So
Grace.
thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I do want to know, do you have anything that's coming up soon? Is there anything you're working on that you're willing to share?
So yes, I am writing now a sequel to this. I'm
Okay.
not quite sure how it's going to come out because I'm still in the process, and so I don't want to say too much.
Okay.
But the good news is I'm also looking for a place for this to live. And
Mm,
so, you know, I'm just doing more writing. Um, it's funny, right after I did this project, I did a holiday film, which is on YouTube now. And so it's called A New Holiday. Yeah. I ended up writing something else right after this. So it was pretty cool. But I'm in the process of seeing where else this goes because I think um there's just a place to go, like digging deeper into isolation and loneliness and all of that. I just think there's a world there that I'd like to explore. So
mm.
that's what I'm doing.
Okay, we'll be on the lookout. And you
Oh,
said
absolutely. I'll let you know.
okay, perfect, perfect. And my very, very last question is a question that I really like to ask a lot of people who, when we're allowed to ask these questions to those in the industry, because I think that it's the only way that you can get people to open up. I think Sarah Jake Roberts, she says that instead of asking people, how are you? How's your heart? This is kind of my version when it comes to the film industry of it.
Okay.
Um, and it's what is one thing you've never been asked that you wish people would ask? You specifically.
Wow. One thing I have never been asked that I wish people would ask.
Hmm.
Do I want people to ask me that? Okay. Well, so I don't overthink it. The first thing that came to my head was what does happiness look like to you? But I don't know if I want people to ask me that question, but that's what came to my head. So maybe subconsciously I do.
Hmm.
Am I supposed to answer that now?
I'm trying to decide whether or not I should ask because you weren't sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's
What
a question
does
that came to my
happiness
head,
look
but I don't
like?
know if I want anybody asking me that.
I guess we can give it a try. Let's see what happens this time, and then you'll
Okay.
know, right?
What does happiness look like to me? Huh. Grace got me digging deep.
Hey.
Well, I got myself digging deep. Happiness to me looks like peace. jo- Okay, they're gonna think, oh, she preachy. I'm not preachy, y'all. I'm really not. But now it just came to my head. If ultimately I think what happiness looks like to me is the fruits of the spirit.
Mm,
Oh gosh, I hope that doesn't sound too corny, but I'm like literally on that right now. I'm studying that. Love, joy, peace, patience. I think all of those things are happiness. And honestly, it doesn't matter where, because you can have all the money in the world. And if you don't have those things, I don't really know what happiness would, you know what I mean? I don't know if happiness would be there.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think that's it. Oh gosh, I wish I had a funner question. Like that was so, it just came in my head. Oh man.
No, that was kind of the objective, just
What's
to
my
get
favorite
into.
pizza?
Oh, boohoo! What is your favorite pizza? Okay.
Pepperoni.
Are you the kind of person I have to ask now? Do you like pineapple on your pizza?
Well, Grace, it
Okay.
was nice meeting you. Nice meeting you.
I love pineapple on my pizza.
I've had it. I wouldn't say I love it, but if I'm hungry enough, I'm gonna eat it. With ham, you eat it with ham, don't you?
Oh no, no,
Just
no.
pineapple by itself?
Okay, it's gonna get worse from here. Pineapple and black olive.
I like black olives, but what does that come in with the pineapples, Grace?
It's good because the black olives are just a little bit salty and the pineapples are sweet if made
Oh,
correctly.
you're sweet and
Yeah,
sour.
a little bit, a little bit.
Okay.
I did away with pork about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. So that's why, because before that I was a sausage and pineapple kind of girl. But we made the transition over, and so
God bless you. I honestly, I tried. That pepperoni keeps calling me, and I'm like, I don't want this pork no more. And here that
yeah.
pepperoni come. I'm like, all right, forget it.
Yeah, don't blame
Anyway,
you. Thank you so
of
much for
course.
your
Have a
time.
wonderful day.
You
Yes, thank
too.
you.
Thank you.